Welcome in, Raiders. Are you looking for some of the rare blueprints like the Tempest, Looting Mark III Survivor, or Snaphook Blueprint and been unable to find them? Well, I've spent over 300 hours in Arc Raiders looting every container type, studying every blueprint video, reading every Reddit forum and Twitter posts, and today I want to give you a no BS guide on how to get blueprints in Arc Raiders. So let's go. First, I want to break down the facts, fictions, and theories surrounding blueprints in Arc Raiders. Facts. Night mode increases odds, loot value location increases odds, volcano blueprint is found only during the hidden bunker event, and the bobcat blueprint is found only during the locked gate event. Fiction. Epic augments can only be found in Bluegate, Snaphook can only be found in Dam, and electromagnetic storm has increased odds. Theories. Arc surveyors are blueprint pinatas, both locked and breachable rooms have increased odds, breachable containers have increased odds, and certain container types have higher chances of certain blueprints. For example, servers often drop glow sticks. Some of these may be true, some false. We don't have enough proof or data yet to confirm either or right now, but I want you to be aware of these potential factors. So where do blueprints come from? Well, they come from any and all containers, certain Arc, special events like the Harvester and Matriarch, trials, rewards, and quests. With that said, the next question we have to ask ourselves is how do we increase our odds? Well, we know that night mode increases the odds. We know that high loot value locations increases the odds, and that locked rooms and breachable rooms also likely increase the odds. Which means that what I'm about to tell you next is going to be the most important factor when it comes to finding blueprints inside of Arc Raiders, and that is loot density. Because finding blueprints in Arc Raiders is luck at the end of the day, and the only way we can increase those is with the things we had just mentioned: night mode, loot value locations, locked rooms, and breachable rooms. The thing that matters most is loot density. What does that mean? That means going to a location that has a ton of lootable containers, right? Think of it like the lottery. If I submit one lottery ticket, I have one chance at winning the lottery. However, if I submit 100 lottery tickets, then I have 100 chances at winning the lottery. This applies the same thing here. So if we loot one container, we have one chance. If we loot 100 containers, we have 100 chances. So the way that you are going to increase your odds at finding blueprints within Arc Raiders is to go to a high loot value area at night with massive loot density. And after 300 hours of playing the game and hundreds of hours of searching for blueprints, I am going to show you some of the best loot routes and buildings that have high loot density, high loot value, and have given me the best luck when it comes to finding blueprints in Arc Raiders, which includes things like the Tempest, the Snaphook, the Vitaspray, and much more. Now, there are 3 loadout types that you're going to want to use when it comes to hunting for blueprints in Arc Raiders. The first loadout is going to be no gear. The reason why we use a no gear loadout is for a few important factors when specifically blueprint hunting. Factor number 1 is the safe pocket. If you, for instance, find a Tempest blueprint and you're on a free kit and you don't have a safe pocket, you're taking an extreme risk of losing that blueprint that you may have been hunting for hundreds of hours. Factor number 2 is if you load into a raid late. We all know what this feels like. You load in late and now there's no loot to be found on the map, so you have to run all the way to an extraction, get out, and reset. With a no gear loadout, you can simply click surrender if you load into a raid late, which becomes super important when you're running on the increased chances of a night raid and you only have 1 hour to do so. Time equals efficiency. Better efficiency equals more blueprints. The second loadout is going to be our free loadout. This has a few benefits. 1, it does come with a weapon and some utility, allowing you to deal with Arc and players a little more effectively when you are running these blueprint runs. It also, because it's a free loadout and there's no loss on death, means that you can surrender if you load into a raid late, just like the free loadout. However, there is no safe pocket, and we already talked about the importance of that, so use the free loadout if you think it works best for you. For our third loadout, I have what I refer to as the budget loadout. This uses a green looting Mark I backpack, a light shield, a tier 1 kettle with an extended light mag 1, 200 rounds of light ammo, 5 bandages, 2 shield rechargers, and 5 adrenaline shots. This is a loadout that you would want to use if you want to have a safe pocket, but you also still want to have a fighting chance and feel like you have a well-rounded loadout when going topside. Keep in mind though, the biggest disadvantage that this loadout has is that if you do choose to surrender because you have a late spawn, you are giving up a total of 22,000 coins in loadout costs, which in my opinion is less effective. But if you prefer to have a full loadout and you have a couple of things that you want to do along the way, like quests or other things of that nature, then feel free to bring a loadout like this. For the final part of our video, we are going to be talking about the best loot routes and buildings to find blueprints within ARC creators. Now keep in mind, just like mentioned before, you absolutely want to be doing these during night raids if possible. Now for our first example here, we're going to be using Battlegrounds. Now what you need to know about best loot routes is that it is all dependent upon your spawn. For example, if I spawn down here, I do not want to run all the way over to Power Generator Complex because it's the best building to loot. Instead, you are going to want to go to one of the nearest locations that has high loot density. Now, out of all of the locations on Battlegrounds, I have found through my experience of hundreds of hours of playing the game that the best and highest loot density locations on this map are going to be Testing Annex, Research and Admin, and Pale Apartments / Ruby Residence. So, for example, if I get this spawn right here, I'm going to want to head immediately to Research and Admin. However, if I get this spawn right here, I'm going to want to head straight to Testing Annex. And if I get one of these spawns over here, I'm going to want to head straight to Ruby Residence. What you're then going to want to do is loot all of the containers in those areas. See if you hit a blueprint. If you do, great. If you have a couple extra valuables along the way, you can feel free to hit one of those extracts, but otherwise just press surrender and then run it again. For Buried City, the best loot locations with high loot density based on spawn points is going to be Hospital, Library, both Space Travel and Research, this hidden location right here, and Plaza Rosa. Again, you want to be heading to locations based on your spawn points to be as efficient as possible. All right, you don't want to waste a ton of time running all around the map just because there's a particular building that you'd like to loot. The reason being is that if other players get there first, you've now wasted a ton of your time, right? So what you want to do is, again, head to the nearest high loot density, high loot value location, loot that up, and either extract or surrender based on the loot that you get. For Spaceport, the best locations I've found are the lower portion of Control Tower A6, all of Departure Building, the top of Launch Tower, and Arrival Building. These locations are absolutely incredible. They have extremely high loot density and at the same time have high loot value. Again, pick the locations based on the nearest spawn. Then once you find what you need, feel free to extract or simply surrender so that you guys can be as efficient as possible and put in as many runs as possible during these night raids. For BLUEGATE, I've personally found that Village is easily the best location on the entire map. But second to that, I would have to say areas of Checkpoint, especially the underground area over here, are going to be the next best points. Again, choose it based on your guys' spawn points and go from there. The last one and most tricky map that we're going to have to talk about here is Stella Montis. Now, in my personal experience, I have had the absolute worst luck when it comes to finding blueprints on Stella Montis. So personally, I don't even advise using this map, even during night raids. However, if you are going to, I am going to highlight the locations that I have had the absolute best time finding blueprints, which again, isn't very good on this map in general, but those areas are going to be Seed Vault, as it has a ton of lootable containers, and then also the Lobby Security Bridge, Medical Research, and Cultural Archives. The reason that we're choosing these locations here is because, again, it's all about loot density. Cultural Archives has a massive amount of containers to loot, as does Medical Research, and most particularly this spot of the lobby. This spot is called Security Bridge. In it is a breached location that is extremely hot, so be aware. Again, PvP is a primary factor on Stella Montis, so you need to be ready for that. But I do find this area specifically to be the best area for blueprints in my experience. I hope this guide helps you guys find the blueprints that you're looking for. I really love Arc Raiders. I plan to do a ton more content for it in the future, so if this video helped you, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.